All right, let's get going here. Hi, I'm Tony, and this is the Jeep Talk Show Roundtable episode, the most misunderstood, the most maligned Roundtable episode, but it's fun. Good Lord, it's fun. Hello, Zoom people.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hey, wait a minute. We did this last week, and it probably is every week. Not Travis, Roger. What is what is that from? Is that a Wisconsin thing, or is that just?
It's just something I picked up a long time ago, and it just kind of stuck.
It's funny.
I guess know. Everybody gives me shit about it, so that's why. Maybe that's why it stuck.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like herpes.
A gift that keeps on giving. Yes, absolutely. All right, so you can be part of the Zoom meeting if you care to be after all that. Just go to xjtalk.com/contact to find out how to join. You'll also see how you can sign up with our newsletter there. Did anybody get the newsletter today? I think I need to start sending that thing out earlier because I don't think they all get sent out by the time the Zoom meeting rolls around.
I got it, but it was later today.
Yeah. I kind of forgot it was Tuesday.
I'm guilty of not looking at it, so
that's fine.
I couldn't tell you when it came out.
There's not enough pictures in it for Roger.
We can't make you read. We can just send it out there to you.
Driving and reading probably shouldn't do both.
Alrighty. Well, that might actually be a subject that we cover later in this episode. So I don't know how well this question is going to go over, pun intended. I don't know that you can prepare, but I thought this was a good question that maybe none of us do, but maybe some of us should. How do you prepare for a rollover? And I figured that we could be some funny answers as well.
Once you know you're going to go over, there's not really a lot you can do other than making sure you put your hands somewhere where they're not going to go out of the vehicle. If you're the driver, hang onto the wheel. If you're the passenger, cross your arms, hold your chest. If you have harnesses, grab the harnesses.
Now's not the time to tighten them up.
No.
It's too late.
I've flopped my Jeep. I've never rolled it, but I have rolled my Razor. And as soon as the wheels came up on the Razor, I knew I was going to go all the way over. And at that point, it was like, well, I'm along for the ride, so here we go.
Yeah, no
you're
reason
just
steering
a passenger at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can do before leaving? Have a great attitude and no rollover attitude is fine. But is there anything that you can take with you? Or I would think that one of the things that you definitely want to take with you is a friend with a capable vehicle so they can unroll you.
Yes.
Spare shorts.
If you have
toilet paper,
a good winch and some, maybe some extensions, depending on where you're at, you can unroll yourself.
Some poo powder. Oh, shut up.
I would say if you're going to do stuff that if you're going out there with the expectation that a rollover is possible, have a roll cage, have harnesses.
That's a good point. A roll cage is perfect. Something you can do to prepare for a rollover. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And then I was listening to something the other day and they pointed out if you don't have a roll cage, you don't want harnesses because you want to be able to move if the roof gets crushed. Whereas a harness locks you into place, where a seatbelt lets you have a little bit of movement, where you can slide down and lean over. So, small differences like that. Make sure you're going to be able to turn your key off once you're upside down.
Yeah, one of the things I was looking at the other day, right before I headed out to stretch out the new control arms, was I was looking around in my Jeep and I thought, you know what, if something did happen, today would not be a good day because I got my 1/2-inch impact driver in there. I got I had all my air pump, all the different things in there that I was looking at. I was like, I don't have any of this stuff secure, and I wasn't doing anything where I thought I would even come close to a rollover. But you
don't expect it. It's not going to happen to me, of course.
Right.
Rick, did you bring along a PFD?
The who? What?
A PFD, a personal flotation device.
Always have a personal flotation device.
That's a good point, though. Making sure the stuff in the Jeep is tied down where it's not going to come over and hit you or hit somebody else.
Yep.
I know, like in my TJ, I have a roll bar, like a harness bar in the back. But all of my stuff is too big to go between the tailgate and the bar, so it can't come out. But if you don't have that, you want to make sure your stuff's locked down.
I don't know that it's something that you would use on a TJ or not, but I got a mesh, one of those nylon meshes, like a grid that goes from the back cargo area to the passenger area. So it blocks that way. I mean, it could be good for a dog as well, but also too for keeping stuff that's in the cargo area out of the passenger area for like in a rollover.
Is it like that? Like looks like seatbelt mesh? Or are you talking like?
Yeah, it's real thick stuff. It's I think it's a couple inches wide and it's all sewn together, kind of like a cargo net, I guess you could say. Yeah. But it's not flexible. Yeah. And it's important where you tie that stuff off to as well. You can't just tie it anywhere. It needs to be, I think I put mine on the seatbelt brackets so that it's a nice, good place where it's going to stay and not rip off.
Yep. Make sure it's secured in such a way so that it didn't punch you every time you come around for the roll. So it has enough length in it to
beat the crap out of you.
Get you every time it comes around. But
Well, that's another thing too. Like if you do have a harness, the extra slack in your straps, make sure that's secured so that when you go over, they're not slapping you in the face.
Oh, do you need something to cut the seat belt or the straps out in case you're in a rollover? And I mean, gosh, it could be a fuel spill. It could be a life and death situation there.
I know seat belts sometimes get jammed. My Razor harnesses have a seatbelt style latch, so it's possible in that. I just got new harnesses for the Jeep. They're a mechanical, just like a lever that hooks through, and it's got a little ball detent that has a strap on it that you yank, and it releases everything. And there's no mechanism or anything. It's just a little hook on like a lever, basically, and everything hooks through. You latch it, and it's just on a ball detent. So very unlikely for that to have an issue.
Well, there are quite a few things that you can prepare for on a rollover. Is there, probably a fire extinguisher or two. And it needs to be someplace where you can get to it in a rollover.
And not hit you in the head.
It's all about tying it down.
Those element ones, I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt that bad if it did hit you in the head, but I keep one of those above my head, and then same in the wife's, there's one above on the left roll bar.
Yep.
Yeah, it might not hit you in the head, but could you imagine you're in the harness, you're trying to reach for it, and it's just out of reach because you didn't have it set where you could handle it, get to it with the harness on.
Yeah, then you break out the pocket knife and
the elements no longer California legal.
Oh, and get your telescoping back scratcher. You could use that to roll the element fire towards you. So that was the other thing we've kind of been mentioning, harnesses. Is getting a harness is not a bad idea for a rollover, right? That's a good thing to do prior to a rollover.
As long as you have a cage. If you don't have a cage, with a Jeep, you've got the rolled bar. So in theory, you should be okay. It should, your head shouldn't be getting squished. Assuming you're, a YJ or newer. But if you don't have a roll cage, you don't want to have a harness, because if you do roll over and it, smashes the roof and you're in a harness, there's nowhere for you to go. You're stuck in that position and your head's going to get crushed.
I think if you're to roll once, maybe twice, you might be all right. But if you got in a situation where you roll several times, I could see the roof coming in on you.
I mean, it all depends on what you're rolling off of. And there's a soft rollover and there's a really hard rollover.
Yeah. That's why there's a sign right on your hardtop that says "not rollover protection."
Yep.
So does anybody have a good recommendation for a roll cage that is a good roll cage, but self-installed, that doesn't require to be welding as a bolt-in?
I know you can buy I know Goat Built does you can buy their whole chassis with their roll cage and they'll weld for you for a fee.
Rock Hard 4x4 makes an add-a cage that's a bolt-in to increase the structure of the factory cage.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they're not bad. We have a couple of those from Rock Hard, but
Would you say that's like better, just not as good as something like a Genrite one?
Well, the factory cage is surprisingly pretty damn good. So it's increasing the structural integrity of the factory cage. But remember, your aftermarket cages are only as good as the installer.
Oh yeah.
well, even the one for the JL, when they designed it to go around the plastic. So the actual bolt-in cage does not even go to the factory roll bars because it's designed to look better than function, in my opinion.
I've got the Rock Hard and the TJ, and I know several other people that do and have had rollovers, and it's done well. But they were all soft rollovers. None of them were, rolling down a hill.
I rolled, God, what was it? 2010 JK, 7 times down a hill with the factory cage and a Rock Hard, and I walked away just fine. And it was not a soft, gentle roll. The axles ripped off the Jeep and the engine dislodged from the Jeep, and I still walked away.
I think ultimately, if a roll cage you have survives one accident, rollover of some sort, I mean, it's paid for itself, right?
Yep.
I think Rock Hard's the way to go as far as your bolt-in, when you're not talking about welding that the average consumer can install. I think the Rock Hard is the only one I've seen that's user-friendly, consumer-friendly, if you will, that you could do in your garage.
Budget-friendly, but still worthy of use.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, hopefully we don't never have to use it and try it out.
So it looks like Rock Hard calls at least the one for the XJ a sport cage. So doesn't sport cage mean less than, what you would expect in a weld-in roll cage? Or
it's your factory.
No, it's especially for the XJ, it's 1,000 times better than not having one at all. But
yeah,
any of the Rock Hards, and they're going to work on their wording, but they increase the structural integrity of the factory cages, right? They lessen the weak points. However, a really good, well-built, well-installed aftermarket, whether it be a moto build or a generator or whoever, as long as it's installed correctly, it's going to be fine. That's the hardest part. We had a whole discussion on this, and even Tony came on here from Genrite. The biggest problem is in the installer. You have to have somebody pay the money and get a competent person, if you're not it, to do the welding on that, because, we saw even last year when we had that big discussion, it was the reason that the discussion came up in the first place was of a very nice Jeep with a very nice roll cage in it rolled over, and,
2 people died. Yeah. Yeah, I remember going here to the Rock Hard site several times, looking at these bolt-in cages, which is really the only thing I could do since I don't weld and I don't have really anybody that I know of that I could take to have it welded. So, yeah, it'd be nice. I think it's always good to have the protection, and this kind of passes my things that you can do to your Jeep that are cool because it's visible. It's not like putting in a SYE or something that nobody knows. You're the only one that knows it's there. Everybody knows there's a cage in there. All right, so that's one of the things that you could do ahead of time is put in a roll cage, and also too, I think putting in a cage is a little difficult due to the price, and I think all of us have the belief that we're never going to roll over anyway. What's the difference? I guess installation and cost probably would be a biggest difference about an internal cage and an external cage. I would assume that the external cage not only is protecting the occupants, but also helping to protect the Jeep.
In theory, but it depends on the role and what kind of terrain you're in.
Yeah, that's the one thing nice about that rock hard setup, but especially on like a JL, you're linking everything together so that it is a stronger sport cage, if you will. Right? It's never going to be as strong as a full bore cage with a good installer, but there's different levels to everything.
So can you install a cage in a nice Jeep and maintain the carpet and everything else? A weld-in, I should say, not install the cage, but a weld-in cage. Can you install something like that, or have it installed and expect still have the luxuries, if you will, of the carpet and everything else?
Absolutely.
Well,
I
that's
don't
good.
see why not. I mean, anything can be modified to fit.
I think most of the major builders and designers do, especially with the newer Jeeps, they design them. I know Tony does, so that it still has all, he makes a big point about making sure that all the airbags, everything is still completely functional. The flip down mirror with the light in it for, because the wife's going to want to
That's right.
do all that. I mean, he talks about that, and I'm sure Moto Built, I'm sure they all do that the major designers.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead, Larry.
I said the worst thing you probably have to give up is some of your plastic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You may have to trim some of the plastic, trim and interior pieces around the bars, but you should be able to keep all your, luxury stuff without any major issue.
Wow, they make a brace kit. A Rock Out 4x4 makes a brace kit for the JT. That's pretty nice. And this one is definitely bolt in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much the same kit as a JL, right? For the most part, the front half, the sports around the window that goes in on the front windshield and everything. And the one thing I have seen before I say I've never installed windows, but I looked into this, is that they give you kits to drill that because that's a hardened cage, right? The sport cage is not soft; it's hard. So you're not going to just start poking at that with a drill bit.
I don't know about on the JLs and the JKs. I know on the TJs, it's all clamps. So you don't have to drill anything.
I believe the JL is you actually put in some what's the word? Not speed nut, but the
Riv nut?
riv nut, that's the word.
I haven't seen anything more of it, but Motobuilt actually posted something. They had a Gladiator torn down, and they were installing a cage in it and doing one of those teasers about cage information to come. So I haven't been over there to look at it. Of course, I don't have money, so it's best that I don't look. All right, so we're talking about things that you can do before you have a rollover. I did like Kevin's initial answer, which is hang on, because you're just going for the ride. But maybe there's some preparation we could do before we get out there. How about recovery gear? I mean, a winch I think is good. What other things would you want to take? And I guess it really depends on if you're self-recovering or not. Should you always plan that you're self-recovering, and then if you don't have to self-recover, all the better?
I mean, you should always plan for the worst. So self-recovery would be the best. A spill kit, you're going to probably leak some fluids. Try to, clean up after yourself.
But just remember on your self-recovery, you're not going to run that winch for long because you're not running that engine.
Dual battery setup comes in handy, I would think, on those situations.
Yeah, I'm just saying, typically you're running your engine, right? So that you keep everything charged. But if you're flopped over or totally over, obviously you're not running an engine. The only thing you've got is what's left in the battery if you can get to everything.
Right.
If you got a high lift jack, you can use it too. That's a L manual.
Come along.
You can use that for winching. you absolutely had to.
I think the best thing to do is just not roll over.
Well, absolutely. But
Keep it on the
they
street. Keep it in the parking lot. That's where you're safest.
plan for the worst, or hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Can't believe nobody's mentioned the main preparation that every mom's going to want you to do before you are involved in any type of accident.
I know what it is. I'm not going to shoot it down. Go ahead.
Make sure you got clean underwear on,
and make sure the day of the week matches the day of the week that you're wearing. You don't have Monday on Saturday or anything like that.
I thought that's what the spill kit was for.
Yeah, exactly. That'll embarrass your mom too.
I don't know why it matters if they're clean, because they ain't going to be afterwards.
What's the point of having them if they're clean, right? They
put a clean pair in a glove box, I guess.
Oh, that would be a good explanation. Why find some men's underwear that she doesn't recognize?
That doesn't go.
All righty. Well, I think we've if nobody has anything else, I think we can move on to the next one. That was better than I anticipated, because there was quite a few things there that I hadn't thought of. So that's the cool thing about the round table and asking questions and getting answers from multiple people. It's a fun way to learn things, and hopefully some of the stuff we've mentioned got you guys thinking. Does everybody agree that probably the best thing you could do to get prepared for a rollover would be to get a roll cage?
Of some form, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know that we explained it. So you do have a roll. What is it? It's called a sport cage or something, right? That from Jeep. I mean, you do have not a roll bar, but you have some way of protecting yourself in a rollover situation. But it's not meant to be in severe rollovers, and it's like a one-use rollover thing. So if you can put in an actual roll cage in it, or something that stiffens the roll cage that's in there from the factory, you're much better off. And it doesn't matter if you're on road or off road, because sometimes Jeeps flip over on the road too.
Yes, and pipe is not tube. Pipe is for poop. Tube is for cages.
This is correct.
All right. Oh, and before we get away from this, this isn't a rollover situation, Rick, but is there anything that you can prepare for before going into a body of water? Is there something that you now do, or you say, I need to do this before I find myself in a large body of water up to my nose in the Jeep? And this is serious. I'm not picking on you. I mean, you've experienced this, and a lot of people haven't. Is there something that you would do now other than not going in the body of water?
Well, yeah. First thing I do is I would walk the path that I'm planning on driving first, or I let some other fool drive their Jeep in first. But I mean, my preparation for that is to never allow it to happen again. That's for sure. I mean, it's just, but having been there and done it, the preparation for it, I don't know that I had a snorkel, but snorkel's not designed to be sitting there soaking in water. It's designed to pass through, at best. And it's mainly for air, for pulling in, a cold, it's basically a cold air intake is mainly what it's for, and keep dust out of your breather. But at best, traveling through water is one thing other than just sitting there soaking. Because I know when mine was sitting there, all I could think about was every little pinhole and, that water squirting in every little place and headed straight down into, whatever valve was open, and right into the engine. But, I was pretty blessed in the whole situation. I had zero water in the oil, and I have some water in 1 and 2. But when we pulled the spark plug and cycled the starter, it just squirted right out. And then, as you guys know the story, I was able to drive it home 45 minutes from that wonderful situation.
Sounds like you kind of got lucky on the hydrolock situation.
Yeah, as soon as water, the snorkel. Definitely the snorkel helped. I mean, if it would have been, I mean, other than the snorkel, I mean, it would have, yeah, it definitely would have sucked air or water into the intake had it not been for the snorkel. But as soon as water came up into the dash, it died, and, at the time I was, we weren't expecting that washout to be there. And, so my thought process in that moment was one,
that had to have been a hell of a time when you're going, well, that's deeper than I thought.
I'm pretty sure it was like, oh shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely some, did I have brown pants on type moment, but,
so when the water hit the dash, where you go like, save the ducks.
Well, the only reason I had a duck on my dash that day was because earlier, after we ate breakfast, and then we came to a red light, and it just happened to be a 4-lane, and one of the other guys pulled up next to me. I had my doors off, he had his doors off, and he just chunks this duck at me and hits me actually upside the head with this duck.
So you're trying to blame it on the duck? Is that what I hear?
And no. I mean, that was the only reason I had the duck. So I picked it up and set it on my dash. So I'm thinking, yep, I'm going to get him back later. I mean, that was my plan. I was waiting for the opportunity to chunk it back at him. But
there's too much story to this thing. This is something you thought about to cover yourself on the duck.
I think he was just trying to free the duck.
It was, oh, my precious.
I should never have to live in captivity on my dash.
I haven't seen that video in a while, but I remember seeing a couple of ducks floating around while you were in the lake. It was really surreal. I thought it was really funny. All right, so there's nothing you can prepare yourself for, and clean underwear doesn't matter because it's going to be cleaning itself in the water. So it's kind of a win-win. All right, so let me ask you this. I think we've talked about this in the past, but I thought about it recently, I guess because of the issues that Jeep is going through. However, I think they're going to climb out of it here, especially with changing a few people in the decision-making tree. So pretend, if you will, they stop making Jeeps. Do you build your own Jeep? I mean, like I spoke with Dan at Motobuilt, where they actually built a YJ, and I think part of the tub was the only thing that was the original YJ, maybe the hood. Everything else they built. They're not selling parts to build your own Jeep, but I could see how they might, especially if Jeep stopped making Jeeps. So would you build your own Jeep or buy a used one, or would you switch brands? Larry, how about you? I mean, I think you're most likely to switch brands because you buy and drive anything.
Well, it depends what I wanted it for, right? But there's enough Jeep parts and Jeep everything out there to where, I mean, you can damn near build a Jeep from the ground up if you want to with brand new parts, right? But you're right. I've owned just about everything and just bought my second Jeep, so. I mean, there's plenty of Jeeps out there that if you can't buy it new, then buy an older one and build it.
Is there a rule as far as how long they keep parts for Jeeps? And I guess that
10 years.
10 years. So
yeah, so government mandated any manufacturer has to maintain parts for 10 years after they build the vehicle.
So there's a possibility that you, depending on how long it was, you may get into a situation where not only are you building your own Jeep, but you're also building or refurbishing the parts.
JK owners only got 3 more years.
So there's, with the aftermarket, there's sort of this, there's a window where after the 10 years, the aftermarket really doesn't step into it, and it varies from vehicle to vehicle. But you'll see, like, over time, someone will step in to fill that role, but it may take, another 10 or 15 years after that initial 10 years. So I deal with that at work. People will look for stuff for certain cars, and we're like, nobody's doing it yet. Give it another 5 years.
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
Say if you go back, to your point, if you can leapfrog back even farther, you start getting into the older stuff, and the aftermarket opens up, tenfold. Like those the old Willis's, you could damn near build one of those from ground up at this point.
You can build one from the ground up. A Willis, they make the motor, they make everything.
Yeah.
Well, what's
Oh,
the one they
that's
make down in the what's the one they make down in the Philippines where they make all brand new? It's a whole factory makes all brand new parts, but
It's just one of the Willies.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was surprised with that Willis truck I bought. You can buy everything for it. There's nothing you really can't buy for that old truck at this point.
I like
There'll
that.
be
I
some
like the way
random
that
piece
sounds.
of trim you look for that you can't find.
Do what?
There'll be some random piece of trim that you want that you won't be able to find.
Oh, there's always something, right? You know.
But as far as being able to drive it and, roll up the windows or whatever, yeah, that sounds
I
good.
got stuff from my JL that I can't buy if I want to also. So,
Well, and this is kind of an unpopular opinion amongst Jeep people, but the Wrangler should have died twice already. And somehow it's managed to stay. Like it should have died at the end of the YJ. The sales were dismal. And even if you look at the end of the TJ, the sales were still absolutely dismal. If you took the final years of sales in either one of those models and compare it to cars that have gotten killed in the last 10, 15 years, they were half of the cars that got killed sales. Like they were terrible. So it's impressive that the Wrangler has managed to make it, 2 more generations after the TJ.
Actually, that's a good point. For Jeep surviving, it survived dire straits in the past. So now it's not that big a deal. Let me ask this, and I probably have asked you this before, Greg. Hopefully he's not. Did he mute himself? He looked like he was getting ready to cut something. No, he's not muted. So, Greg, can you maintain a Jeep and have it be as reliable as buying a new one?
100%. So, I mean, case in point, I'll turn the camera here. This is a 2003, right? So it's 22 years old. And every single nut and bolt and screw. So the only thing original on this, because you guys, most people who've watched the show have kind of followed along. If you haven't been watching the show, go back and watch all the old episodes and you'll see this as the entire build. But so this is a 2003 TJ. It's been cut in half, turned into a brute. The engine's brand new. The transmission is brand new. The transfer case has been completely restored and is brand new, other than the outer shell. The only parts on this that are not brand new are the original axles and half of the original dashboard. But nobody could tell. It has been meticulously restored inside and out. Most of the parts, so just for shits and giggles while I stand here, the taillights, the mirrors, the glass, the windows, the wheels, the tires, what else? Parking brake cables, control arms, control arm bolts. All of those parts were sourced in one place. I bought them all from Quadratec. And Quadratec, like I just bought a Grand Cherokee, so it's a 2000 Grand Cherokee. They still have all the control arms, all the springs, all the shocks, all the brake components, new brake lines, new headlights, new taillights. All of the parts that you would need for a mild restoration are available in a one-stop shop at places like Northridge or Quadratec. So we have huge companies located in like Georgia, Amexada, who specialize in all of your restoration parts for your older vehicles. So you can buy just like other people have said, a Willys, a CJ, a YJ, a TJ, and 85 to 90% of those are available in the aftermarket, from brand new bodies to doors to all of your trim pieces. JK will take a little bit longer because it's not quite old enough yet for those companies to start manufacturing some of those replacement parts, but 100%. I don't own a car that's newer than 20 years old. Everything I own, like personally, is 20 years old, and I buy the replacement parts and I make my vehicles run better than a brand new car with none of the stupid electronics and none of the other stuff. My wife would love me to buy a brand new car, but I know that in 2 to 3 years, it's going to start having issues that are going to cost me a lot of money. Where The XJ in the driveway, I can keep it running for another 20 years on probably $5,000.
What are you doing for sensors? Because I think a lot of the OEM sensors, they're not making them anymore. TPS, for example, for the XJ, the 4.0, I know that one has a tendency to go out. And if you buy a aftermarket, the quality I've experienced, my experience is it's not as good.
Just pay attention to who you're buying from. So if you're buying, like a lot of the sensors, you want to go with reputable brand names. So Bosch, GM Goodrich, or AC Delco. You want to go with the name brands. You don't want to buy the cheapest one you can go. Like even if you go to O'Reilly's to pick up your parts, and I say them because I shopped there last year. I spent almost $60,000 at my local O'Reilly's. You don't buy, if they have 5 different sensors, don't buy the cheap one. Buy the lifetime warranty or the most expensive one, and you're probably going to get the name brand. You're not going to get the one that's going to fail. And if you get that lifetime warranty with it, even if it doesn't work, you just bring it back. They give you a brand new one for free.
Yep.
So
Crank position sensor, those things can be very persnickety. Who would you get a Bosch, AC Delco? I mean, who would?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would look at the factory sensor, and if you can clean them off really good, like take some brake clean and a plastic brush, scrub them really good. If it's still the factory original sensor, there's probably a name on it. And you'd be surprised at how many of the factory ones were made by Bosch or Delco or a couple other companies. If the factory name's on it, you can probably cross-reference that to the factory replacement part. Even though it might not have the Chrysler star on it, it still might be made by the original manufacturer. Mm-hmm. However, there's a lot of cheap overseas, and I won't say Chinese, but cheap overseas imitation parts that don't work as well. In fact, on this TJ, I ran into that, and I probably have one sitting right here. So the multi-function switch, which on an 03 or newer TJ looks like this.
Yep.
And this controls
crap.
But it controls your headlights, your turn signals, your high beams, your windshield washer, all of your stuff. So there's like 4 companies that all sell this today, but you can't get an original one. And the problem is, if you do some research, you can hook it up and everything functions, but as soon as you touch the hazards, it blows the fuse. So I ended up actually taking 2 of these apart because I had like 3 stock ones. I took a couple of them apart and I desoldered the connections and took the factory hazard switch and moved it into the brand new aftermarket part, which took me an extra 3.5 hours, but then the customer's vehicle is going to function the best way possible.
Right.
And you can't get, the original manufacturer for this, and I'll bet you I can tell you, it's always, the original manufacturer always puts their name on their part. Sometimes you have to open the case, though, to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I was gonna say there's this idea that if something's older or has some miles on it, that it's not reliable. I'm like, all of my cars are old. I would drive my dually or my wife's crew cab pickup that has 200. Both of them have 200,000 miles. They're both 20 years old. I'd drive them across the country tomorrow. Like I have no fear of that. Do they require a little more maintenance than a brand new car? Yeah, but they're still going to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing is the maintenance, right? If you look at an older car, so like Jeep, because we all love Jeeps, we're on this show for a reason. The original straight 6, the 4-liter, right? It was an industrial sewing machine. It was made to last forever. In fact, there's a lot of reported cases of them with 500,000 to 1 million miles on a factory 4-liter. They discontinued that, not because of gas mileage, not because of anything else. They discontinued it because people don't need to buy a new car in 2.5 years. Right? It's just like Volkswagen. In the year 2000, their little diesel engine, was good for 500,000 miles. So they changed it and they put a rubber timing belt on it and made it an interference motor. And then a lot of them would die after 100,000 unless you did your maintenance. if you didn't do your maintenance, you're lucky to get 200,000 or 300,000 miles out of them, where their predecessor would make it 500,000 or more. Same thing, like he was just saying, with trucks. Look at the old 12 valve. The old 12 valve, easily a 1,000,000-mile motor, right? They get rid of it. They put a 24 or a 32 valve, and then they put DEF and all these other things on it. And now you're lucky to have a brand new $100,000 truck last for 200,000 miles, because they're making things so that we have to buy cars sooner.
Kind of sounds like building your own Jeep is a good idea. You can get the best parts and fit them into the Jeep and have them last for a long time.
Yeah, if you've got the time and the availability, I would recommend to anybody, right, take an old car and fix it up. It's fun. If you have kids, you can get the kids involved. A lot of them, it's surprising you don't need amazing mechanical ability. Just remember, cleanliness is next to godliness. Everything you take apart, clean it, make it look brand new, put it back on. That's the best way to find damage, is cleaning your stuff. And you really can. You know, my 14-year-old bought a 72 Polara, and, you know, he turned 20 yesterday, but he took a $2,000 car. He's turned it into probably a $10,000 to $15,000 car that you can walk outside anytime you want. Turn the key, it fires right up and drives you anywhere you want to go. And he's only invested 3 times what he paid for it. So he paid $2,000. He's put $4,000 into it. It's worth more than what he's invested into it, but it's a reliable car that he can use anytime. And it's a fun project, right? Get your family, get your wife, get your boyfriend, you know, however it works, get other people involved. Even things like this, like the Jeep Talk Show. I think it'd be amazing if we could get together and have a few people from the Jeep Talk Show all get together and kind of throw something together and learn new tips and tricks and make it a fun outing where you get to meet and hang out with new people and experience new things, right? Old cars are great for that.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't care if it's the crappiest old car ever. It's still way cooler than most of the new cars today.
Yeah, that too.
You could buy a Pinto or a Gremlin or something, and if you're comparing it to something comparable like a Yaris or a whatever Eco box is out today, the Pinto or the Gremlin are still cooler.
It'd be cool to get an Eagle and
Eagle's really cool.
build an Eagle. That'd be cool.
Greg, did you ever think about getting a AMC Eagle and building it up with all the 4-wheel drive and lifted and all the rest of that stuff? Those things were really cool. That really was a station wagon.
He's going to show you a picture.
I'm going to show you a picture.
You're going to walk out in the backyard because he's got one back there.
It's in the yard. It's in the back 40.
I have been searching for a good one for a while. The problem is every time I find a good one, the people want way too much money for it. However,
your camera's off.
I know, it's because I'm searching on my phone.
Okay.
So I'm going to find this picture and I'm going to text it to you, and then you can put it on the screen.
Text it to Roger.
Kind of like that one that we found in Wisconsin that was somewhat nice, but they wanted too much for.
Well, yeah, but that was kind of different. So that was an AMC Spirit GT, which is one of my dream cars, which just sounds really stupid, but a Spirit GT is literally one of my dream cars.
Well, and there's another thing too. If you're in the old car market, if you're looking at stuff, sometimes, and this isn't always the case, but a lot of the times, if you'll spend a little more money on something a little nicer, you'll spend less money in the end.
Right.
Because usually something that's nicer was kept nicer.
A good fixer-upper.
It was taken care of better.
Yeah, there's a reason why it was nicer.
Yeah.
All right. So I just sent you a screenshot.
And who?
Oh, am I supposed to send it to Roger?
Yeah, send it to Roger, because I'm like doing a show.
Well, I know, but you're still more technically savvy than I am. There, I sent it to Roger. So this is, and it's going to take Roger a second to share it.
Like his secretary or something, I guess.
Well, you know, if the shoe fits, lace that motherfucker up.
Fuck you.
So the AMC Eagle wagon is a very, very cool and unique vehicle for multiple reasons, and one of it ties right into Jeep. In fact, the AMC Eagle wagon is one of the reasons that we still have a Jeep today, and most people don't realize that. However, if you want to go onto my YouTube, which is unofficial use only, and scroll back through the videos, there's a video that's labeled Remembering Phil Toney. And Phil Toney was the founder of the Lunatic Fringe at Jeep. In that video, him and Dave Thompson talk a little bit about the YJ and how the inception happened, and they talk a little bit about the Eagle wagon because I prodded them. So the Eagle wagon, when the YJ was first being developed, right, AMC was having an issue because the CJs had a rollover thing and 60 Minutes, slandered them. So they had to redesign the suspension on the YJ. And when they were doing that, the YJ had a very small budget, right? For an entire vehicle redesign, the YJ had a very small budget. And I forget the exact number, but it was approximately $50 million. Where the AMC Eagle wagon was up for a refresh the same year, and it had a $250 million budget. So the axles that are under the Eagle wagon and most of the suspension and the transfer case and all that were developed under the wagon, and then they basically stole those parts and threw them under the YJ. So this rendering that he's showing right now, it's an Eagle wagon with the rear doors removed. And I did the little moon eye, kind of 70s inspired van window. But what a lot of people don't realize, the Eagle wagon is a unit body. And the unit body means it doesn't have a frame at all. However, Jeeps that we know, in fact, the CJ, the YJ, the TJ, the JK, the JL, they all are a unit body that is placed on top of a frame. And then the frame and the unit body share structural loads. So this rendering is my interpretation of what I'd like to do to an Eagle wagon. So that's no lift and 37-inch tires. And the way I get around it is the unit body was originally designed in the 4x4 application to actually work with a chassis or work with a frame. So if you took a TJ Unlimited chassis, stretched it, did the 5-inch stretch that most people do with the rear axle, it would fit underneath an Eagle wagon perfectly. So that's a Eagle wagon, which is early 80s all the way through late 80s, with a TJ Unlimited chassis, no lift, 37-inch tires. And I opened the fenders up a little bit and I deleted the rear door, but I would love to build that. I've been, for the past 4 years, I've secretly searched for a clean Eagle wagon. I'd like to find one without rust. I don't care if it runs or not, but it'd be really nice to find one without rust that was a reasonable price. Because 10 years ago, you could buy these all day long for $500. Now, clean ones, people think that they're worth gold and they want them, $5 to $7 grand. Now, on another note, if anybody ever is searching and finds a Spirit GT, the Spirit GT shares the same hood, front fenders, and nose as the Eagle wagon, but they're the size of a Chevette. So they're only a two-door. They don't have the wagon aspect. And the Spirit GT was kind of a performance one. There was even an AMX version, and the AMX version came with a 360, but most of them came with either the 2.5 or the straight 6. It was the same power plant that went in the Jeep. But if anybody finds a Spirit GT that's kind of rust free, I would love to get one. Roger found an amazing one last year, but the guy wanted running driving vehicle price for it, and it didn't even have a power plant.
He won like $7 grand, I think it was for.
Goodness, they're cool.
Yeah.
I think this would look really good out in Moab during EJS, depending on the color scheme that you used. But it's also square headlights.
But they're the small squares. But yeah, I would do the color scheme. They had this beautiful earth tone brown and this kind of like a dirty white. And some of the Eagle wagons had that two-tone, and it was like a dirty white with this regular earth tone brown, and I think that would look really, really cool on that.
You could put actual wood paneling on it.
Yeah, so that was a factory option. You could
Yep.
buy them with the wood paneling. They had the big Woody sticker down the side. And that was like the fancy one. That was like the limited.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one up close. I may have seen one in passing, but I don't think I've ever seen one up close. Certainly never have driven one. So yeah, it's a cool vehicle.
I'm certain that when you were a kid, they were everywhere. It was one of the best selling cars. And a lot of people don't realize they had 2-wheel drive versions, but the vast majority of them were all 4-wheel drive. So if you were in any form of northern state, they were everywhere because it was a 4-wheel drive station wagon.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, so that's it for tonight's episode. Fun information. Glad I mentioned the AMC Eagle. Got that additional information. Those are so cool vehicles. I'd love to see one up close. Maybe even drive one. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, they had one that was called the S/4 too. So the Spirit GT was a 2-wheel drive version, but they had an S/4, which was the size of a Chevette. So it was the very short wheelbase, but it was also 4-wheel drive. So it was the same wheelbase as a Wrangler, but this little itty bitty car, but 4-wheel drive. So those were kind of cool too, but I don't like the 4-wheel drive ones. All right, I'll shut up. Sorry.
That's all right. Hey, you can submit your questions for the roundtable. Just go to xjtalk.com/contact to find out how. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for this week's Jeep Talk Show Roundtable. A big thank you to all of our Zoom participants. You guys make this so much fun and informative every week. Oh, and I'll add, if you got somebody, maybe a company that you're dealing with, maybe a salesperson that you're dealing with, and you just really enjoy talking to them, tell them about the show. Everybody's invited here, and they can come on here and talk about their stuff. Talk about the company, talk about stuff that you can buy from them. Good business owners. I mean, we've had Tony from GenRide on here to talk about his stuff, and it's always fun. It's great to be able to have somebody you can interact with and ask the questions to. All right, remember, you can join us again next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for more Jeep Talk random questions and always a few rabbit trails. Don't forget to visit xjtalk.com/contact to find out how you can be part of the conversation. And many of you know we also do this on Thursday night. It's not an episode. It's just coming together here using the Zoom software to come together and have a roundtable. So Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, you can join us right here and do the same thing all over again. But I generally don't talk, so that's a bonus. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
Broadcasting since 2010.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.